Welcome into the I-80 Boys College Football Show. As always, I'm Christian Hunt, and that guy right over there is...
This will be Chris Vaca, future Big Ten West champion again, man. It's coming. Nebraska's going to get her done. No, I don't know. I'll start the show off with this, Christian, to surprise you. Nebraska gets beat this week by Michigan State.
Really?
Yeah.
Nebraska gets beat this week by Michigan State. Well, would it shock me? Only because I'm going to say no, it wouldn't shock me. But I'm only saying that because, Chris, we talked about this a little bit, I think, earlier in the week. And one of the things that we kind of touched on was Nebraska's kind of one of those teams that's still finding their confidence, I feel like, right? And sometimes you see it a lot of times, right, where teams, they get successful and they almost don't know how to handle it. And I feel like this is a game that it's very easy to kind of look ahead to the next week, right? Look ahead almost to Maryland. And the game is at home, right? It just feels, and you said it best, a trap game is kind of could be brewing for them. I mean, we've seen Michigan State play some teams kind of close, right?
Yeah, they have. They played Rutgers. I know people are going to point and laugh. Who's Rutgers? Indiana, teams like that. I know. I'm just saying, and Daniel, you can laugh all you guys want at me. I just have a feeling this is an epic letdown spot for the Huskers this week after winning 3 in a row. First time since 2016 for us. I'm worried about this game. It's at Michigan State. We got to travel up there. I'm a little worried. I know it sounds crazy. I don't want to sound like a hater, but I'm a little bit worried, man. I just see this happening. Just knowing the Huskers and how I know them, I could see this happening. And like I said, I hope I'm wrong. I truly do. I know Christian and I talked about this earlier in the week. He told me I was fucking crazy. Now he's starting to kind of come on board a little bit with it. But yeah, he said that would be some typical Husker shit to do. He's not wrong.
Well, it's just been, and every year you see this, right? Where teams start to get hot and then all of a sudden they just get clipped by somebody you weren't expecting. Odds books go completely wild. Whoever bet their mortgage on it ends up winning a lot of money. But of course, people like that are like me, you end up losing a lot more money too doing that strategy.
Yeah, no shit. I want to add this. If you guys think I'm crazy, which I obviously I am, I'm not smoking anything though, Daniel. Nebraska is favored, by the way, by like 1.5 points. So I'm not too off from Vegas and a lot of the public and some of the sharps out there. So it could be upset alert. I hope I'm wrong. Go Skurs though. Christian, what do we got this week, man? We're almost 3/4 of the way through the season, which is sad. I can't believe it's gone by this fast. What we got today, man? What we got?
We got some good stuff today, Chris. I think as we do this, obviously we're entering into you said it best, the mid-season lull almost, right? Where there's some sneaky good games that are happening. Teams are going to get put on upset alert every week, and it's going to be really interesting, right? This is where seasons are won and lost is right here. It's very easy to think, okay, the beginning part of the season, the early matchups that are big, and then the end of the year, obviously, with the rivals, everything like that is obviously big. But this right here, I mean, this is where fans come to cry. It's this part of the seasons, right? So, with that, I kind of want us to look at our first matchup that we've got here, Chris. Texas A&M versus Ole Miss. Chris, I'll start us off here with Texas A&M. Hey, quarterback gets hurt for Texas A&M and Connor Weigman, and everyone thinks the season's done with, right? Max Johnson comes in, and he's quietly been kind of holding things down for him, man. I mean, he dismantled South Carolina last week, looked pretty good. But where things kind of got a little bit iffy was, I think, a couple weeks ago when they played Tennessee, right? They were on the road. Knoxville's not an easy place to play. This matchup right now, Ole Miss is kind of favored very heavily in this one right here. You're looking at it. Texas A&M's 5-3, 3-2 in the conference. You know what Ole Miss is going to be. You'll touch on them here in a bit. But, yeah, man, I mean, I want to see on the road, can Max Johnson show me something here, man? Can he show me that Texas A&M is back? Because this is, I got to think this is possibly Jimbo's job right here, right?
Yeah. No, I'll agree with that, and I'll give a little Ole Miss stats here. And I mean, Ole Miss is Christian. It's a team that nobody's talking about. They're like, I swear, they're one of the most underrated, slept on 7-1 teams in the country this year. You know what I mean? People talk about Oregon, people talk about Bama, the one loss teams. No, everybody forgets about Ole Miss, man. Their only loss was to Bama. I think it was like week 4. They did beat a good Tulane team this year who's quietly creeping back up in the standings. They beat LSU in I swear that game was 50-49 or some crazy shit shootout game a few weeks ago. But this game is really important for Ole Miss, in my opinion. I mean, they're trying to win this side of the conference. They're in second place behind Alabama. Alabama obviously has the tiebreaker, like I mentioned, for the SEC West. But offensively, man, I did not know this until I looked this up, just digging into some stats, Christian. Ole Miss offensively has had a pretty damn good season, man. They're averaging 40 points a game. That's top 10 in the country. I mean, for an Ole Miss team, we know Lane Kiffin can coach, but Jackson Dart's looked really good this year for the most part. He's much more improved than he was last year. You can't sleep on Ole Miss in this game. And I'll say this, defensively, they're only giving up 21 points a game. That's pretty good for an Ole Miss team. That's pretty good for a Lane Kiffin coach team. So if Ole Miss wants to win this game, Christian, they're going to have to win the line of scrimmage and win the turnover battle. I know that sounds super cliche. Everybody says it, but against A&M, who's they got a few veterans out there, especially in their quarterback, like you just mentioned, they're going to have to play pretty sound in this one, Christian. I'm going to give you my prediction right off the rip, and I'm actually picking an upset as Ole Miss is -4.5 in this game. Give me A&M in this one, man. You said it, Jimbo Fisher. I think he still holds on for another week. Give me A&M 28, Ole Miss 27.
That could be very interesting, Chris. I think you kind of said it. Man, you're taking A&M right there.
I know. Going on a limb here today, baby.
Yeah, give me Texas A&M 38, Ole Miss 42. I got a feeling that this has kind of the A&M Miami kind of vibes all over again, right? Where we could be in for a little bit of a shootout, and I wouldn't particularly hate it. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Speaking about that, Christian, I think this game, I mean, you obviously have a few more points being scored in it, but I just think that it's so weird because I had to cover Ole Miss on that, but it's like this game is going to be close. I truly do. I know A&M has been laughed and pointed at and screamed at all year, and Jimbo Fisher's been on the hot seat all year, start season. I think he's still coaching for his job, like you said. I think they have to win this game if you're A&M and him. And I think they squeak one by, man. I really, truly do. I think it's super close. Like you said, this might be a blowout, too. This could be not a blowout, but a shootout. So I agree with you.
If they lose this game, and let's say it's not even particularly close, like Ole Miss figures out somehow, again, how to play somewhat competent defense against an actual team, and they do what they're supposed to do, I mean, does he get fired? Like right then and there? Pretty much? Like, do we go into the next week and it's like, well, Jimbo Fisher's been fired?
I think A&M, if they don't fire him at the end of the year and they do lose this game and they end up finishing maybe even 6-6, I don't even think that's enough. Yeah. If A&M doesn't fire him, that means they don't have the money to pay him because they got to pay that huge buyout, which is like over $70 million. I'm with you. I don't know. It's good. This game has got a lot riding on it. If you're both teams, right? Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss isn't a bad football team, man, and they're right behind Bama on the SEC West, so they could get one. Bama loses this week to LSU. Uh-oh. Ole Miss. Ole Miss has got to turn around and play Georgia, though, too, right? So,
yeah. I mean, you're not wrong, dude. I mean, it's gonna get real interesting real quick. With some of these conferences and some of these games. I mean, it's just, I can't wait, Chris. I'm excited. Jumping ahead here, a team that's very near and dear to our hearts here, Mizzou versus Georgia, the preview. Chris, talk to me a little bit about the Tigers.
Let's go, Missouri, man. The feel-good team of the year in college football. 7-1, Christian, you know that. Only loss was in a super tight game against LSU a few weeks ago. That was a high-scoring affair like every other game LSU ever plays in. But, Missouri, right behind Georgia in the SEC East standings, man. I'm telling you. This is their chance, right? This is going to be everything this week for Missouri. One of the biggest games they'll probably ever play in, to be honest. So a few keys though for me in this game for Missouri to even make this close. I think they're 16-point underdogs, honestly, if I got that correct. But they got to give Brady Cook some time, man. This kid has been underrated this year. He's played well. I've watched him play a ton. He's athletic. He could run. They're going to have to get some time for him against Georgia's, front four and in that linebacker group. But we talk about this a lot on the show. Georgia's defense isn't the defense of last year or the year before. We know that. I think everybody with a set of eyes knows that this year. So they're susceptible to some of the big plays. I throw the ball to my best player. That's Luther Burton III. You guys hear me talk about him all the time. He's right behind Marvin Harrison, man. This kid's like 4th in receiving yards. He's up there in touchdowns. This kid's electric. He was a 5-star. He was actually one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver coming out of high school a few years ago out of the state of Missouri. Decided to stay home. I'm telling you, if Missouri wants a chance to win this game, they got to throw the ball down the field to this kid. He is awesome. He's a smaller version of Marvin Harrison, but damn, he's good, man. Overall, though, I think where this game is also won and lost, if you're Mizzou and want to make this thing close, defensively, they're going to have to find a way to get some pressure on Carson Beck. If you give Beck a clean pocket, we've seen it time in and time out this year. He just lights people up. You guys might not have the best set of receivers out there in the country, but Carson Beck's been picking people apart all season long. That's why he's in the Heisman race. So, Christian, I want to kick it over to you for the Georgia man, which is exactly what you are.
Well, and thank you, by the way, for that. I think the thing that makes this so interesting is the wide receiver group in Georgia is quietly, to me, it's one of the more underrated groups in the country, because one of the guys that they have is Dominic Lovett, who was a receiver at Mizzou last year, to be exact. Right. So this is a bit of an interesting game against his old team there. Carson Beck, you touched on it, Chris. I mean, he's been pretty much lights out this year. Same thing with Brady Cook. The thing to me, Chris, is, we touched on it, Georgia's ability to still play really good offense, right, without their typical production in the run game. I mean, Edwards is kind of coming back here. He's been back for a couple weeks now, 95 carries, 556 yards, 8 touchdowns. So he's looked pretty good, and he started the year off kind of banged up. So did Kendall Milton. They've all really done well. And last week against Florida, with Brock Bowers being out, you were wondering, how was Georgia's offense going to roll? They still have Oscar Delp. They still have some great wide receivers that can make things happen for them. Georgia right now, Chris, we touched on it before we get on the show, number 4 in the country in total offense. Which is not typical of what, I mean, they're good on offense. They're top 25, top 30 every year in offense, I feel like, but they've taken it to that next level that you want to see. And defensively, you're right. They are going to give up some explosive plays, but the thing that I like about Kirby and the thing I like about my Dogs is they make in-game adjustments. You might burn them once, you might burn them twice, but I can guarantee you won't burn them with the same trick 3 times. So for that, I'll give you my prediction. Give me Georgia 35, Mizzou 28.
Jesus, we're close. I got Georgia at 35, so we hit the nail on the head there with the 35 number. I got Mizzou though at 20.
Yeah, so 35 to 20, you say?
Yeah, 35-20, Christian. I know the spread 16, and that's not what I base my scores off of, but yeah, I just think that Missouri's defense, I mean, even though statistically they're not too bad, it's just Georgia's offense has been on fire, man. They move the ball at a really good pace. LSU put 50 on these guys. So I don't see any reason why Georgia can't score in this game. And I just think Georgia has a much better defense than obviously any of the teams that Missouri is going to be playing all year. So I got to lean Georgia in this one. I know it's a big game. It's also in your guys' backyard. It's a tough place to play. Missouri, like I said, feel good story. Love it. It's great. But Georgia too much in this one.
I originally had this game, by the way, when we got on here, I had it 21 to 35. I decided to change my mind at the last second because I realized, Chris, you said something exactly right. Hey, Georgia's defense isn't as good as they've been in years past. I could see a scenario where we give up, 28 or so points to Mizzou. Just as long as we score 30, that's all that matters, right?
Right. No, I agree, man. I agree.
Daniel brings up a really good point here. He says not having Brock Bowers will eventually come back to bite us, and I agree. I agree with you. I think the original timeline was 4 to 6 weeks. So if you can get through the regular season, maybe get into a matchup in the SEC championship game, maybe you can get him back for that, maybe for a playoff push there. But we'll see what happens. I mean, the guy might just shut it down and just get ready for the NFL.
I want to ask you a question, Christian, or even chat here. If you are Brock Bowers, and trust me, I follow a lot of NFL, he's a top 10 pick without a doubt. This kid's probably one of the most, if the not highest upsided tight end probably to ever come out of college. He's up there without a doubt.
Yeah.
Do you come back and play 1 or 2 games, if that, for Georgia, or do you just focus on your future in the NFL?
I think it depends on the kid. I think Bowers wants to come back this year. You know what I mean? I think he's been the do-it-all guy for Georgia. I think he wants to finish this, and I think he wants to get another natty. I really do. You can't say that about everybody, right? I know the kid. I've seen him. He's a hard worker. I think that's the good thing about what Georgia does is they get kids that are bought in. And if you're not bought in, you end up going to USC and end up getting put on a milk carton because no one's seen you. R.I.P. Big Bear.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? But seriously, you got to be bought in, and I think that's a great thing. The culture that they've built there with Georgia is if you're not bought in, then hey, don't show up.
Right. No, you're exactly right here. Real quick, I want to add on that a little bit. I'm with you. He's a team player. He loves his team. He's one of those guys, and I love that about him. You're right. Georgia does cultivate a lot of fucking people like that over there, where they're about the school. They're not one of the highest NIL paying schools. They play because they care about the name on front of the jersey instead of the one on the back. So I could see him coming back. I could, just kind of depends how he rehabs and how that all goes. But boy, he is a weapon though, man. God, he's good. If the Heisman Trophy wasn't just a QB award, man, he's one of the best players in America without a doubt, in my opinion.
And if he's not good to go, we still have Luke Bennett on the team, Chris, as a wide receiver that we can lean on right there. Younger brother of one Stetson Bennett. So we still got.
Boy. How old is he? Is he 38? Is he an older brother then?
No, he's a freshman. Yeah, right. They just dug up some guy like a Lifetime Fitness and just said, "Here you go. You're related to Stetson. Come walk on." There you go. Can you play quarterback?
No shit, man. No, that's fucking funny.
Oh man. So, Chris, looking ahead here to Bedlam,
Let's go.
Right? Chaos, pure unadulterated chaos here. Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State. Chris, I'll take the Oklahoma side here first. Dillon Gabriel has looked pretty good this year. Really, the only blemish they've had, and they've gotten close a couple times. A couple weeks ago, UCF almost got them knocked off, and then last week, they did get knocked off against Kansas. I have to make the point here that they only attempted 19 passes last week against Kansas, which I think is just mind-blowing, right? They would only do that, right? Oklahoma's offensive identity is built around throwing the ball 30 times a game plus, right? Lighting teams up. Even when they come to the SEC, you're not going to have Dillon Gabriel, but they have a really talented freshman quarterback that they got from last year. Throw the damn ball. All right, throw the ball. Let's not get cute here. Let's not try to run the ball against Oklahoma State this week. Finish the damn thing that you started this year and just throw it. You got Dillon Gabriel. The guy has probably 15,000. Well, not 15,000, but he has damn near. He has over 10,000 yards passing. I know that. He's another guy that's been in college forever. So the defense has been all right. I think they've been better than what they've been in years past. They're more consistent. But again, at some point when you're in these tight matchups, you got to get a stop, right? You got to get a stop. You cannot give up 30-plus points to some of these Big 12 schools and then expect to walk over into the SEC next year and compete with Bama or Georgia or Tennessee or even Kentucky for that matter, right? We've seen how all that goes. You got to be able to bow up and you got to be able to play some defense, Chris. Talk to me a little bit about Oklahoma State, a team we haven't really mentioned that much on the podcast.
No, I agree with your whole statement there about Oklahoma, 100%. You're right. We haven't talked about Oklahoma State much. Why? Because they weren't expected to do anything this year. And when you start the season out losing to South Alabama and Iowa State, nobody's probably going to talk about you. But I'll be honest with you, K-State and Oklahoma State, two hottest teams in the Big 12 lately. They've been blowing the doors off of everybody. So, yeah, Oklahoma State 6-2, man. They've rattled off some wins, some big wins, not by just a few points, by pretty much a landslide over K-State, Kansas, West Virginia, and Cincinnati last week, Christian. Quarterback Alan Bowman, man, this guy's been playing good. They moved on from Spencer Sanders, who I think it's at Ole Miss now. He's throwing the ball for over 1,500 yards. He spreads it around quite a bit to those receivers. They don't really have a true alpha over there. But the biggest thing with OSU, man, they could run the ball. Ollie Gordon last week, I think, had like 270 some yards rushing against Cincinnati. The kid's got over 1,000 yards, Christian, on 140 carries, 10 TDs this year. Very underrated back. He's actually really, really good. I got to watch a little bit of him this year a couple times. Just because he plays on Oklahoma State, they don't, I guess, want to publicize that too much. But defensively, I think is one of the big keys in this game. You talked about it. Oklahoma coming off this loss, I would assume is coming into this game pissed off. These two teams do not like each other. I remember this when Nebraska was in the Big 12 years ago. This game was always close. Didn't matter really who was the number, whatever highest ranked team versus a team that maybe had 4 wins going in. It's always close. But defensively, like I said, Oklahoma State's, they're giving up like 24, 25 points a game. They're not terrible, but they're going to have to rely on that defense, keep Oklahoma's offense off the field, in my opinion, in this game. I think points are going to be scored, Christian. I'm going to give you my prediction right here. And I think nothing more for an Oklahoma State man would want to knock Oklahoma off this year, since they're departing and going to the SEC next year. So I have this game super close, Christian. It's going to be interesting. I can't wait to hear your score. I have Oklahoma 38, Oklahoma State 35 in overtime.
Woo! So just to confirm, you got Oklahoma 38, Oklahoma State 35? Okay. Yeah, so I've got Oklahoma 38, Oklahoma State 31.
Woo! Jesus.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a one possession game. I agree with you on that. I could see it going to overtime, but here's the thing too, right, Chris? I have a very strong feeling that because of what happened last week with Oklahoma and Kansas, they've got to be coming into this game more pissed off, more fired up, ready to go. Their season's in the balance. I mean, surely, they're not going to come out flat, right, on the road. Yeah. So who knows, right? I could see a scenario too where it's not particularly a close game and Oklahoma ends up just running away with it.
Anything could happen in this one, man. I like I said, I'm with you, but this is a crazy thing. If Oklahoma would have barely beat Kansas last week, I think that Oklahoma State, I probably would have picked them today in an upset. You know what I mean? I do, but now that they had that rude awakening, like holy shit. Big win against Texas this year. They were in the driver's seat of the Big 12. Now you have to win this game. Not that they still need to win this game, but it's, what I'm saying? It's just a lot happened because you said something really interesting. That's why I thought they would have just mollywopped Kansas last week. They played like shit and won in 30 seconds against a bad Central Florida team the week before, barely. So it was like, what the hell is Oklahoma doing? You said something about 19 passes? For Dylan Gabriel, who came from what? Did he come from like Central Florida where they sling the ball 80 times a game?
Oh, yeah. I think when he got to Oklahoma a couple years ago, he had over 8,000 all-purpose yards, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a couple years ago, so I would imagine he's well past 10,000 now. So, but yeah, let's take a look here. We've got LSU versus Bama. We'll jump right into this here. LSU versus Bama, the preview. Chris, talk to me a little bit. Talk to me about some Roll Tide.
Baby, the team that I harp on, and I guess that people tell me that I'm a bandwagon fan behind the scenes, but Alabama this year, man, 7-1. We know the loss was to Texas in week 3. Since then, Alabama has played better. Throw out the South Florida game. They've improved a ton, honestly, and I hate to say that because I'm not a Bama fan, but they have. Defensively, Alabama's given up 16.5 per game, man. That's I think that's top 15 in the country. They're solid on defense this year. They're much improved from last year's team. But here's the thing in this game, and this is why this game is so hard to predict for me. Can they slow down Daniels and that LSU ranked number 1 offense in the country? I mean, these guys put up points. I think Daniels right now, Jalen Daniels, is probably my Heisman vote getter right now between him and Penix, dude. He has played elite this year. He's carried them time in and time out, man. Every game LSU, like I said earlier, plays in, Christian's been a shootout. Here's the thing. If Bama can get some pressure on him, and Bama has, I think, 30 sacks on the year, which is way up there. They're good at getting pressure. they're going to have to limit that, as far as limit their offense a little bit, create turnovers, do something, because Alabama is not going to win this game in a shootout. They're not. Jalen Milroe, quarterback for Alabama, he's not that type of guy. I think he's improved this year. We've seen him play enough, but he's not even close to the type of quarterback that Daniels is. So in this game, I think Bama needs to run the ball really well, Christian, play decent defense and get pressure and try to create a couple turnovers. That's the only way I could see Bama winning this one, even though they are favored in this game and they are at home and they're tough to beat there. Again, I think this game for Bama is super important. This game is super important for LSU. Whoever loses this one is done. They're toast as far as the SEC goes. So I think in my heart of hearts, Christian, this game is going to be close. Like I said 100 times here. I want you to talk to me about LSU, that offense. Let me know your prediction first, because we talked about this today a little bit. I'm super torn on this game.
Yeah, I'll get to my predictions here in just a second, Chris. But I agree with you. I think it is going to be a close game. It always is when LSU and Alabama play. It doesn't matter the year. It seems as if it's just always a close game. It's a good game to watch. It's one of my more favorite I don't know what you'd call this, but like subcategories, not like a main rivalry, but side rivalries, if you want to, in sports, right? It's just a great game to watch. But Daniels, Chris, stat line says it all. I mean, he has 25 touchdown passes already in the SEC, which is pretty damn hard to do. He's been the best part of that offense. Now, early in the year when we covered him, we talked about, hey, can somebody take some pressure off this kid so he doesn't end up getting, just his ACL gets torn apart, as he's trying to do everything and run and do all that. Diggs has stepped up pretty nicely as he has 105 carries, 611 yards, and 6 touchdowns on the year. So that's pretty good right there for him. Malik Neighbors, both Daniels and Neighbors are going to be high draft pick guys, I would think. The problem's not going to be on LSU's offense. I think LSU's offense, even against the stout Bama defense, is still going to be able to put up points. I think, and we've touched on it, Chris, LSU's defense has looked terrible, over the first half of the season. Now, they've started to kind of come on. They look good against Auburn, but we know Auburn's offense is nothing to write home about either. They've been pretty bad on offense. Worse than I would say Bama's defense has been, LSU's defense has been. They look good against Army, but again, it's Army. You're supposed to beat them and not give up more than 3 points, right? If you're an SEC school. So I got to take all that into consideration. They have the pieces, right? They got that Mason Smith guy, the defensive tackle, who I think is one of the better defensive tackles in the country. Harold Perkins is probably one of the best defenders in college football this year. Coming into this year anyways, it was supposed to be that. Their secondary on paper is supposed to be pretty good. The issue really starts to kind of get into that whole, on paper, they're great, but on the actual field, they haven't looked good. They have a bye week. Both teams have a bye week coming into this. I just hope that for LSU's sake, they treated this bye week as a good reset week. Let's flush it, and let's start the second half of the season off the right way, which is the way I said they were going to be, which is SEC West champs this year. So with that being said, I'll give you my predictions here, Chris. Yeah. Give me LSU 34, Bama 28.
Okay, I knew it. I knew you were leaning LSU in this one. I apologize, Christian. I know we talked earlier today. We talked about this game a little bit. I'm still undecided, but I just decided. You know why, Christian? I've been riding Bama all year in some of these games. I have Ole Miss, Texas. They did lose that one, but a couple other ones. I'm taking Alabama in this one, 27-24. Bank it. I got to roll Tide here.
Real quick, Chris, legendary Indiana basketball coach Bobby Knight. Yeah. It looks like he passed away. So, shout out to him. I mean, hate to hear that, man. It always kind of really humanizes you and it just makes you realize, man, the world just keeps going on and people just get older and older and stuff. And it sucks that you lose a legend like Bobby Knight.
Yeah, no, hats off, man. That guy, he reinvented basketball. That's for sure. Wouldn't say he was as a person, boy, he was tough, but man, he had a lot of great players play for him. Isaiah Thomas, guys like that played for him. Actually was the mentor for Mike Krzyzewski, by the way, played for him too. Ooh. So we all know who Coach K is. So yeah, rest in peace, Bobby Knight, man. That's sad to hear, but again, I think he was 83. I just saw that on the ticker. So getting up there in age. Yeah, unfortunately, Christian, we'll all meet that end someday. So
it is. And by the way, make sure that when that does happen, you go and get a good mortuary or a good funeral service. I don't have one to recommend at this time, as we're not affiliated with anybody, but just make sure that you dig into that and get all that stuff prepared. Chris, I want to park it for just a second. I got something I got to ask you here. I was looking at Daniel's stats. I didn't realize, like, damn, we're looking at a lot of these guys that got 15, 20 touchdowns. He's already got 25 touchdowns to three interceptions. I mean,
where's he in the Heisman race?
He's up there. I mean, I would say he's definitely top 10. I would say the 2 losses probably hurt him a lot, but okay. I mean, you're talking about a guy right now, Chris, that has, he almost has 3,000 yards,
I know.
Right? So, and we're almost at that, we're over the halfway point of the season for sure, but he might finish this year with 5,000 total yards.
It's crazy because the big knock on him coming into this season from last year, my big thing was like, please don't get hurt. And 2, can you throw the ball? He's done both those things. He hasn't gotten hurt. I know he takes a lot of shots because he runs the ball too, obviously, but he's been everything as advertised this year. He's been awesome, and he's not a very big guy either, Christian. If you look at him, he's not a big dude. He's not like Josh Allen running around back there. You know what I mean? He's played awesome, dude. That's why I said he's kept them afloat, dude, in every game. If they didn't have him back there at QB, man, I don't know if LSU would be even 4-4, to be honest.
No, dude. You're dude, you're not wrong. I mean, LSU would be a lot worse off here. Yeah. Chris, I almost wonder too, where does that shake out? I mean, there's a ton of great quarterbacks this year. I mean, there's got to be a place for him somewhere, right, in the league?
I would think so. He's not big, but Bryce Young was taken number 1 overall, and he was same size. So, and I'm not going to get into the passing comparison because Bryce Young's arm is just elite, but like, I would think with all the great quarterbacks, like you mentioned, this year's quarterback class is just insane. Going in the NFL, somebody's going to take a shot on him, man, because he is mobile as shit. He can run. He's proven to me that he can pass the ball. And I'm with you, man. That's a really good topic, man, to talk about. I mean, I know we're not an NFL channel, but that's an interesting one. I think he finds himself a spot. You might not hear about him for a couple of years, but he puts on a little size in the NFL, which is obviously what a lot of guys do that are smaller. I mean, he's electric, dude. Reminds me of Tyrod Taylor. I know that sounds crazy if you remember Tyrod at Virginia Tech years and years ago. Kind of the same type of player. And Tyrod's still playing. I mean, he's playing for the Giants. I swear the guy's been on every NFL team there is, but he's got a job.
He does. I mean, maybe that's probably where the landing spot would be, is obviously some of these teams that are needing a quarterback. You might look somewhere in the direction of a Minnesota or maybe an Oakland, or like you said, the Giants even, right?
Yep.
Hell, maybe even the Jets. I mean, teams that just aren't going to probably have first round talent, but would be okay with spending and here's the crazy part of it, Chris. I think any other year, right? Any other normal year, he probably is a first, second round guy.
I think so too. I think he'd probably be a second round guy tops, just strictly his size. He's just, how the NFL just clambers over hand size and height and all that crap, all those intangibles and stuff, which I don't always think they're the most important thing. But we saw a guy that was drafted, got passed on by every team, come out for the Titans last week, and Will Levis, and holy shit, if any of you guys follow fantasy football, dude looked elite. First game ever, new old school unis, dropping 4 touchdowns, throwing bombs to DeAndre Hopkins. Will Levis got a lot of hype, and I was actually got a lot of shit most of the year because he wasn't going to be any good in the NFL. I was actually really high on Will Levis. I said he'd be the best quarterback out of that class. So for somebody like me, I was super pumped to see him play well last week. Chris, you know a lot about Will Levis playing at Kentucky.
He put an extra shot of Duke's Mayo in his coffee that day. I'll tell you that right now, by God. He looked like a man possessed against who'd he play against? Some nobody team?
Now, Falcons D's good, though.
They are good, man. I mean, the other side of it, though, was, he reinvented DeAndre Hopkins. It kind of makes you wonder, like, I gotta wonder, Chris, is he a gamer? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like that guy's a gamer because
He is.
if he was doing that all year in practice, why was this really the first time we saw him? Why was he not the backup? And hell, why did he not even push? From what I've seen thus far, Tannehill. Why was he not being pushed?
Well, yeah, Tannehill, he wasn't even the second string. It was the kid from Liberty, the Malik Willis.
Yeah.
They tried him for a couple weeks. Terrible. Yeah, I'm with you, man. Will Levis has got a monster arm. We've all known that about him. He wins the you like to call it the underwear Olympics. He is. He's a freak of nature. But man, he threw the ball incredibly well in that game. I know we're talking NFL here, but my God, he was a good college quarterback. It's just Jesus, man. You're right though. I don't know why he wasn't second string. I thought he would have been. I saw enough of Malik Willis last year to know that kid is another underwear Olympics kid that just he can't upstairs just not doesn't. The NFL game's a totally different game. So I'll leave it at that.
Well, he's a great athlete when things break down. He's able to make plays, and that's a good quality. But like you said, it's the ability to process it, make the right read, and then he can throw the ball. It's not that he can't throw the ball. It's just decision making and placement and things like that. And quarterback it's a lot of thinking man game, but at the same time, you just got to do it. You just got to know the offense, know what's going to happen, and just make it happen. And it's easier said than done because the guys that are really, really good at that, the Aaron Rodgers, the Matthew Staffords, those kind of guys, right? The Tom Brady's. I mean, they make it look so easy.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, I'm with you. You bring up a really good point with that, Christian. It's a lot of upstairs. Tom Brady is not even close to the top 5,000 quarterbacks ever come in the league athletic wise. You know what I mean? But he's smart. He's super smart. Just a competitive dude, a winner, and you're right. Yeah. Malik Willis reminds me of a upgraded Jalen Milroe. Honestly, he does. Guy can throw the ball 90 fucking yards and run a 4.3 40, but yeah, upstairs when it comes to processing and understanding defense, he struggles a ton with that.
Joe Milton.
Yeah.
Joe Milton. That's probably my comp. So
there you go. Joe Milton. Yep.
All right,
let's go.
All right, Chris, we got Virginia Tech versus Louisville on the docket this week. Maybe in I'll set the preseason here. I don't think we would have probably picked this game, but hey, here we are. This is the battle for the number 2 spot right now in the ACC behind Florida State. So I'll start us off here with a little bit of Virginia Tech. So they come into this matchup. I mean, they're 4-4 on the season, but they're 3-1 in conference play, Chris, which is crazy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, their only ACC loss to this point was to Florida State, and they're currently ranked 72nd in total offense, which is obviously not very good. I mean, they're going to look to lean on sophomore dual threat quarterback Kyron Drones. I mean, he's got 1,200 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, and 400 yards rushing with 4 touchdowns right now. I mean, he's he's right up there, and it wouldn't surprise me if he ended up being their leading rusher as well at the end of this one, right? They're going to have to play lights out, right, and be able to move the ball against the Cardinals' top 15 defense, Chris. I mean, which is easier said than done. I mean, Louisville has a legit defense. We saw what they can do against certain teams like Notre Dame, right? Their saving grace is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. They rank 21st in total defense. And if Virginia Tech wants to stay in this game, I mean, they're going to have to shut down, that top 25 offense that Louisville is going to bring to town, Chris. Talk to me a little more about the Cardinals.
Yeah, no, that's good points. Virginia Tech, a team that I definitely don't know a ton about. But Louisville, the Cardinals 7-1 on the season, guys. Their only loss was to Pitt after the big win against Notre Dame. And they got their ass kicked by Pitt. So kind of a weird scenario there. But one thing about Louisville, Brom this year, man, they like to throw the ball. Jack Plummer, he's been pretty good this year. He's got over 2,000 yards, 13 TDs. He's got 8 INTs. I think he had 3 or 4 in one game. But, I mean, they've gotten some help from Jawar Jordan as he's got 10 TDs in the backfield there with almost 850 yards this year. Louisville, I know a little bit about Louisville, just their coach, because he coached at Purdue. They always had a fast, high-octane offense. That's what he's doing there in Louisville. But I think more impressive, Christian, get this one, is Louisville's defense. They rank in the top 25 in almost every defensive category. Kind of surprising for Louisville, or at least it is for me anyway. They're only giving up 18 points per game. That's pretty goddamn solid, especially being an ACC team. That's even ahead of teams like Florida State, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. That's up there with some pretty good defenses. So I actually see, Christian, I'm going to give you my prediction here quickly. I actually see this game being pretty low scoring. I have Va-Tech 14. I have Louisville 24.
Okay. I like it. We're close. We're real close here, Chris. Give me Va-Tech 17, Louisville 28.
No, I like that, man. That was that was a tough one to predict for me because I'm like, I don't know how this game's going to play. I don't know a ton about Va-Tech either. I mean, it's not a team. I actually laughed at them earlier in the season. I thought both Virginia teams were probably going to be the two worst teams in the ACC. Boy, I was wrong. I mean, Va-Tech actually isn't a laughing stock of a team this year. You said it. What they're these two teams are competing for second place. Second place.
Second place. A shot at Florida State here, Chris. I mean, it's crazy to me too because I was really kind of torn who I wanted to pick with this because, you know, especially that loss to Pitt for Louisville. I think they just got a little bit too hyped after that Notre Dame win, and they got brought down to earth. Right, they just got brought down to earth. So games at home for them. I really think that Virginia Tech's offense, Chris, to me, you know, they've been bailed out by their defense and then also who they played. Right, who have they played? Right, I mean, looking at their last 5 games, by the way. They beat Syracuse. They beat Wake Forest. They beat Pitt, the same Pitt team that just beat them, right? Lost to Florida State 39-17, right? So Marshall, right? They lost to Marshall.
Wow.
I mean, and that's probably not even like the worst loss they have either. Yeah, because they lost to, get this, Purdue and Rutgers.
Wow, 2 Big Ten teams over there. Some bitch.
Mm-hmm.
Big Ten, baby, let's go.
Big Ten leading the way there.
Yeah, you don't hear that out of anybody's mouth ever. Said nobody.
So big, yeah. I mean, it's been weird. So, but I mean, that's part of the other side of it too. I think that, you know, I think Virginia Tech, they're outkicking their coverage, and the rest of their schedule is pretty favorable for them. I mean, they play Boston College, NC State, and then Virginia. So they should go bowling this year.
I would say, would they be one of the most surprising teams this year for you, Christian? I mean, I put them up, and I don't want to say like I'm going to compare them to Missouri, but I mean, West Virginia, a team that, you know, literally has really surprised a lot of teams this year. We thought they'd be one of the worst in the Power 5. I would probably, in my personal opinion, would put Va-Tech up there. I didn't see them being anything this year, Christian.
Yeah, I would say they're definitely the surprise team to me this year because it's like they, you know, like Duke, you know, we kind of looked at Duke and we previewed them because of what they did last year. But yeah, I mean, they're kind of one of those turnaround teams that they've surprised me in sort of a good way, right? I mean, I can't really put Virginia on the map yet just because, I mean, they've only beaten who they beat. They beat Duke, or not Duke, but UNC, North Carolina.
Yeah.
And then they almost beat Miami last week.
Yeah.
Well, they almost beat them, didn't they? They didn't beat them.
Yeah, it was 27-24. I think it was damn near overtime or last possession of the game or something. It was super close, though. You're right.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the other crazy part of all this to me, Chris, is we didn't talk about this, the rankings, right? The rankings that just came out here. Yep. Let me pull them up.
Yep. Ohio State. As you're pulling these up, I want to talk about Ohio State. Christian, do you agree with the committee that they should be number 1 right now?
Because I would probably say yeah.
I mean, wins against Penn State and Notre Dame.
Yeah, I would say because those are both 2 top 10 teams at the time of playing them.
I agree.
So yeah, I agree with you.
Yep.
I mean, if we're looking at that, I would say realistically, just in this order, and this is where it gets so convoluted, right? Because you have to kind of look at everything as to what you're looking at here, but. You know, Florida State also has a big win too. I mean, they beat LSU,
but
right?
LSU has 2 losses. I think that's what kind of hurt. It's not. I don't think it's Florida State's fault though, right? You know, like LSU shit the bed against was it Ole Miss? Right, that was one of their losses. So no, I'm with you though. I'm with you. Florida State. A lot of people in the poll today said Florida State shouldn't even be in the top 5. Kind of surprised me today. Yeah,
that's what's so crazy to me about all that is, geez. But here's the thing. I mean, Ohio State 2 ranked wins versus Georgia was 0. Yeah, a lot of people are making a lot of fuss about that, right? But Georgia's going to play their last 4 games of the season here. They play 3 teams inside of the top 25.
Yep.
Actually, inside of the top 20 for that matter. Maybe even the top 15 at time of playing.
That's true. And I want to interrupt you and ask you a question. Do you agree with Georgia being number 2 right now ahead of Michigan?
Well, I guess the question that we really have to ask ourselves is, no, I would probably have put it Florida State number 2, Georgia at 3, and Michigan at 4. Would be how I would do it, because I still think that, at the time, right, Clemson was only a 1-loss team, and they still looked to be maybe the second team in that conference at the time, right? But since then, I mean, they have just really backskidded a lot. So, but no, I think that Florida State, to me, I mean, they've looked like a complete team almost all year. They've had one scare at Boston College, I think, but other than that, I mean, they've done what they've needed to do.
Right. I'm gonna shake this up a little bit. And I do my helmets every week up there 1 through 25. I'll tell you who my rankings are. I have Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan. Or excuse me, I have Ohio State, Georgia, Florida State, Washington. I have Michigan outside my top 4. You know why? Because
cheating?
No. It's because Michigan hasn't played anybody. Washington beat Oregon, who I think Oregon's the best 1-loss team by far in the country. I have to give credit to Washington. Who's Michigan really played this year? And who, you know what I mean? I know that sounds crazy, but I mean, Ohio State, if they put Ohio State 1 like this, I'm assuming they're counting the big win in Notre Dame and the big win against a good Penn State team. Georgia hasn't beaten anybody crazy yet. They beat Kentucky, though, and they beat Florida. Now, Florida wasn't ranked. Kentucky was. So that's a top 25 win. Florida State knocked off LSU. There's their win. Michigan hasn't done it. Washington beat Oregon. So I actually have Michigan on the outside here, believe it or not.
Yeah. Daniel brings up a good point. Washington has the best win of the season. I mean, where do they, you put them at 4, though.
Yeah, I don't know if I put them at the best win, but I think that game is enough to put them ahead of Michigan and put them in the playoff, if you will, if you want to seed it from there. But I like to ask Daniel a question. Are you guys going to beat USC this week, please? That's my question. We didn't talk about that game. We didn't do that game, but I please don't slip up. A lot of people, I was looking at betting, a lot of people think USC is going to somehow upset Washington because they haven't looked good the last 2 weeks. So I want to hear your thoughts on that one, Daniel.
Well, he's answering that. I mean, I personally think that, I think USC is begging. I think their season's over. I mean, we saw it last week against, who was it, Arizona?
Cal.
No, Cal. That's who it was. Yeah, Cal.
City.
Yeah, and they weren't winning that game at all. I mean, at all. So, until the very end there, they made the comeback. But I just think USC, like, they're really hyped. They've got all the talent in the world. On paper they should win, right? They should be good on defense, but they're not. And I don't think they're going to stop Penix. I think Washington's defense, while as hard as it may be to say, I don't, do I think that they're on that same level yet as a Utah? No, but I think they're a good defense, and I think they're going to get some stops, and I think they're going to be able to beat USC.
Okay. I'm with you.
And I think that ultimately, I think this, again, I think the match that everybody wants to see, and hopefully it happens, and it should happen, is Washington and Oregon.
I'm with you 100%. 100%.
And
Christian.
I think a playoff spot will be on the line for that because, you got Ohio State ranked number 1. You got Michigan at number 3. I don't see either of these teams slipping up and losing before they play each other, right? And so that's where it gets really interesting is if Florida State and Georgia win out the rest of the way, then what happens, right? Then who, that's what makes this so difficult because you're going to have to make the decision ultimately between Michigan, Washington, and Oregon.
Yeah.
Hell, maybe even right? Maybe even Texas or maybe even Texas, right? Or Oklahoma.
Yeah. I have a sad feeling for either the Pac-12 or the Big 12. I think one of those, the winner's going to get left out of this thing. You know what I mean? or maybe both. I hate to say that. If the Pac-12, if Oregon ends up knocking off Washington, they both have one loss at the end of the year. Texas, whoever they end up playing, which may be Oklahoma again, they have one loss. I'm kind of worried because I honestly think that Ohio State, Michigan, somebody's going to go undefeated there. Georgia, I think, still going undefeated, and I think Florida State isn't getting beat by anybody. So that takes up 3 spots. How do you dictate that again like last year? Does the Big Ten put 2 teams in again, which is ultra rare for that to happen, but it does happen once in a while. We've seen it with the SEC. Like, how does that all – you know what I mean? Do you take a one-loss Michigan or Ohio State team over a one-loss Washington team if they happen to lose to Oregon? How do you break that down? Like, to me, I know there's a lot of football. It's going to be left on the field. Probably some crazy shit will happen, and that scenario doesn't happen. But I'm kind of worried about, like, holy shit, man. Like, how do you value those conferences, you know?
Well, and I think they've spoken about it in years past. I mean, it's definitely SEC and then Big Ten and then everybody else. I mean, right? And I'm glad this is the last year we have to really worry about this. But yeah, I mean, looking at it, I mean, because think about this scenario for a second, if you will, Chris. What if Bama didn't lose to? What if Bama, for whatever reason, just didn't lose to Texas? They would definitely. They would probably be the number 4 team there, right?
That's a funny thing you bring up because we were not sold on Bama most of the year, but they end up losing that game, but slowly been creeping back. I'm with you. They would, and they would if they beat LSU this weekend and don't slip up. They're gonna play Georgia, right? SEC title game. My God, wouldn't that be a thing for between you two schools? I know you guys have had some hellacious rivalries over the years. What I got a question for you, Christian. How mad would it make you if Bama and you guys play and Bama beat you guys in the SEC title game? I know runs deep for those guys.
Well, we would probably start chanting for Ohio State or Florida State at that period. You know what I mean? Or Washington or Oregon, dude. Whoever gets in. You know, I mean, you know, I would be a little upset, obviously. But here's the other side of it, right? I don't think that would happen. And I know it sounds crazy because you look at recent years, even if Bama wins out the rest of the way, right? Here's what I'm looking at. I know Georgia's defense obviously has not been as good as years past, right? But I think that offsets with Bama's offense.
I agree. I just think that it would make a crazy scenario for college football in the SEC this year if Bama would happen to. Like, I hope Bama does not knock you guys off, and I hope you guys do play and you guys beat them is what I really hope more than anything. But it would just be crazy, right? Because what happened in 2017, right? You know, you guys' last loss was to who?
It was Bama.
That's what's so crazy about this whole scenario with you guys, because it's like Bama slowly keeps winning. It's not pretty. They're not the Bama teams of old, but crazy shit happens. And that's where I kind of hope you guys do play them and beat them. That's what I really want personally, but my feelings don't matter. But yeah, no, it's crazy, man. I think that this whole thing, this is going to shake out pretty cool because last year was crazy, right? It was how Utah knocked off USC, right? And that threw them out of the playoff. And then that's how that Ohio State backdoored their way in there. It's going to be crazy this year. I think it's going to be kind of a similar type of thing's going to happen. I hope to God that you said something very interesting and smart, in my opinion, was I want to watch Washington play Oregon again. I truly do. Yeah. That was a fun game to watch. 2 great quarterbacks, 2 great coaches, 2 really good teams.
Yeah. I want to snuggle up with some bourbon on the couch and just watch those 2 teams play. You know, that's really what I want to do. Right. Chris, this brings up a good question though. Who would you rather play? You know, if you're Georgia, you know, at the end of the year, let's say they win out and they make it to the SEC championship game. Obviously, they still got to get past Mizzou this week, and assuming that all that happens. But what would happen? I mean, who would you rather play, LSU or Alabama?
If I'm Georgia,
hmm?
I honestly, God, that's a tough question. If I'm Georgia, if I'm Georgia, rather play LSU than play Alabama.
See, I would say Bama.
Is that only be?
Well, yeah. I think the offense. I mean, the offense scares me. I mean, I've seen what they can do. Now, granted, they've lit up some not so hot teams, but the offense is what truly terrifies me about them. Right? At least with Bama, I know. Hey, even with not our best defense we've had in the last 3 or 4 years, at least we can probably get some stops against Bama, and the offense can probably win some matchups out there, against their defense, which is still pretty good. But with LSU, like the scary thing to me about LSU, Chris, is they've got 2 losses, but if they beat Bama and they win out, and we have to see them in the SEC championship game, they could get right back into this. They could make a push, as hard as it would be. They could make a push for a playoff jump.
No, I understand your thoughts on it. I would rather play LSU for one reason only. Their defense, to me, isn't going to get leaps and bounds better. I think you guys will be able to. You just said it tonight, a top 4 offense. I think your guys' defense is 10 times better than theirs. That's why I'd rather play LSU just strictly because of that. I also think that Nick Saban has had your guys' number, knows you guys better. I wouldn't want to play Nick Saban in Alabama for an SEC title game. I would. I think he's a way better coach than Kelly is too. That's the only reason why I would lean that route. I'm with you. Is Jalen Daniels a much better quarterback than Jalen Monroe? 100%.
Yeah.
But just because of the past history, I guess, in Kirby being from Bama, that whole scenario. But that's a very good question. Both those teams are scary in their own rights.
Yeah. Well, this kind of ties into, Gator Swag says it. I mean, biggest upset this weekend, I think LSU Bama. I think that's my biggest upset, is LSU beating Bama. And the reason why I say that is kind of what you were touching on. Like the defense has not been great, and we touched on it. On paper, they should be good. Now they haven't been. They've been getting boat raced just about every game they played. They've looked better the last couple of weeks. They had the bye week to kind of get right. I think this is going to sound crazy. I think they're going to come out and they're going to shock some people against Bama. Now, granted, it's not the best Bama offense in the world, but I still think they got a shot. I mean, you look at the LSU side of it, right? Their secondary is built off speed, not necessarily physicality. When you play big, strong receivers like a Florida State, right? That's when you get really exposed, I feel like, if you're LSU secondary. They do much better, I almost feel like, with more of the Bama style, right? Trying to contain runs, keep the quarterback in the pocket, and stuffing the run game. They can, and I know it's been tough. It's easier said than done. Jermaine Burton, I think that matches up well for their secondary, right? Who's the big, strong, physical receiver that Bama really has that's going to take the top off them, like Florida State did?
Yeah, I will add to this, not to talk about that game anymore. You ask about potential upsets. I have 2 of them. I did talk about A&M knocking off Ole Miss. That would be an upset. Ole Miss is rated 10, I think. A&M's not rated. I did predict that game. I'm actually more confident, though, in K-State knocking off Texas this week. I
K-State.
Really am. Yep. We didn't talk about that game. We didn't do that game. But K-State quietly, after a loss to Missouri, and I can't remember who else they lost to. They lost to somebody. I think it was Oklahoma State, actually, believe it or not, who's been super hot. I know the game's at Texas, but that is one for me that I'm going to probably put some money on the money line for K-State this weekend. I think they can catch Texas.
All right. I could see it. I could definitely see it. Put a little bit of putting some coal, dumping some water and putting the fire out on the Malik Murphy train over there.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Malik Murphy didn't look great last week. Didn't look, I wouldn't say terrible, but I think this is maybe a get right spot for K-State, who was actually supposed to be really good this year. I think they still are. They've been playing very well the last few weeks. Texas has been kind of up and down. I know they won against Rice last week. Fuck Rice. But they had some close games after the Oklahoma debacle. So the Big 12, Christian, you know how it is. I mean, you know how it goes over there in the Big 12. Anybody can beat anybody.
Yeah, I agree with you, man. Realistically, Gator Swag says he's picking Mizzou to beat Georgia this week as an upset. Really, what chance are you giving Mizzou?
Yeah, Gators, you're every week you come on here, brother. I mean, I love you, man, but you come on here and say whoever Georgia's playing, they're getting beat by. Eventually, you're going to be right with that scenario someday, but it's not this week, man. It's not going to happen. Like we talked about, I think Missouri is a good football team. They're a feel-good football team, but this is at Georgia too, and I think Missouri had their best chance last year, right, Chris? That was the closest game you guys played by far last year. If I'm not mistaken. Mizzou played you guys super tough for most of that game, and Georgia does what Georgia does best is the coaching is just they make changes and shut people down. I mean, last week was a perfect example, right? Florida came down and scored on you guys. First series, everybody is, Florida's going to get Georgia. You guys change some shit. Florida doesn't move the ball the rest of the game. You guys put 40 on them. That's one thing I love about Georgia. They remind me of an NFL team. They really do.
I think the get right moment happens. Ole Miss beats Georgia 79-34. I think the get right moment of this season for the regular season is the Vandy game, right? I think that Vandy game, they realized something, and that was, hey, we got to quit fucking around. We cannot sit here and let Vandy just score up and down the field with us. And I think honestly, the best thing to happen, and you've heard Kirby talk before in his locker room speeches. The best thing that happened to Georgia is they ranked them number 2.
Yep. Yeah. Good point. Very good point. I like that.
You know what I mean? They're going to look at this and they're going to say, man, that's what they think about us. They think you're the number 2 team in the country. They don't think you're number 1 anymore. You guys are falling off and you gotten soft. You know, and let me just tell you right now, it's like Nick Saban. He's going to use that whole rat poison thing, yep. and it's just going to get even worse. You know what I mean? That's what Georgia does. They make adjustments really well. They're able to adapt now. They're able to do things, you know, a lot faster than they used to be able to do it, right? And honestly, they're just able to use anything and everything as motivation. I think that's what you have to be if you want to be consistent.
100%.
You know, Florida going 9-3. Don't care what anybody says. Keep hating on my damn Gators. We coming for the middle of the SEC.
Yes, you sound like a Colorado man right now, coming for the bottom of the Pac-12. You guys are coming from the middle of the SEC. Congratulations. Enjoy it. Next year, you guys maybe win 6 games again. Billy Napier's fired. Moving on. I don't know what Florida, man. I don't know what you want, man. You guys are going 9-3.
So by that logic, so if just so I know, so if Missouri beats Georgia this week, what's going to happen when they play you guys here in a couple of weeks?
Well, they're winning by his logic.
Yeah. I mean, right? Have to.
Yeah, you have to. You guys got to just focus on Arkansas this week, man. Don't fuck up and lose to an Arkansas team. I'll tell you what, Gator Swag, you guys lose to Arkansas, I'm trolling you the whole offseason rest of the year. Arkansas is terrible. Probably, I would put them up there as probably the worst team other than maybe, I think Vandy could beat Arkansas, man. Like, Arkansas is bad. It's a bad team over there. Get that dub.
Let's see. Where's this game at here? Oh, game's at the Swamp? Yeah. Eesh.
You got to lean that way, right?
Well,
Mertz for Heisman.
Yeah, Graham Mertz for Heisman. Yeah. You talk about a gotta have it game, and we'll touch more on this probably in the preview show down the road here, but on Saturday morning. But like, that's a gotta have it game for both of them, right?
Sam Pittman's like, are you talking about Arkansas?
Well, I'm talking about both coaches.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, Sam Pittman's, I mean, even if he does win this game, does he keep his job, Christian? I know you're a big Sam Pittman fan. I like him too, but God, it's been a rough year.
Well, I would think, yeah. I mean, listen, the only reason why I say that is I know it sucks and I know it's tough, but who are you going to get? If you fire Sam Pittman, I mean, we've been through this, right? It's Sam Pittman. At that point, when he took over, Vandy was a better team than Arkansas was when he took over a few years back.
Right.
I get it. You know, it's not the season you want because you got KJ and Raheem Sanders back this year, but they can't block. You know what I mean? They can't not catch a ball. They can't do all that stuff. I mean, they can't play defense. I mean, it's just one of those things where, I mean, the defenses look good at certain points, and the offenses look very stagnant at other points. To me, Chris, I'm not trying to make excuses for him, but I just know this is a gotta-win game for Sam Pittman. It's on the road. It's a tough environment in Florida. And then if you're Billy Napier, too, coming off that loss to Georgia, this is – I'm not going to say arguably. This is going to be the easiest game they have going forward.
Oh.
Is going to be against Arkansas.
Yeah, no, Florida, just pray you win so you can get bowl eligible and prepare for next season. I'm with you 100% on this one.
Because the rest of the teams right now are all inside of the top 20. Actually, they're all inside the top 20 or inside the top 15 as of this moment. LSU's number 13, Mizzou's number 14, number 12, I think in the playoff rankings, and then Florida State's number 4.
Yeah, and they're not beating either of those 3 teams. Just let you know.
So, I mean, it's all fine and good, but let's be honest here, man. I mean, That's a tough matchup there. They're 5-3 right now.
That would be like me coming on here if Nebraska had to play Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan, and being like, "Yeah, we're beating all three of those." No, we're not. No, we're not. I have a hard time I don't even have us beating Michigan State this week, man. It's tough. I know as a fan, I get it. You love your team. I appreciate that about you, Swag. But sometimes, man, you just got to look at things realistically and take that realistic approach, buddy. I mean, it doesn't mean that you guys can't pull an upset off one of those teams. You got to hope and pray for it, absolutely. But let's be honest, we've seen enough of Florida this year. We know what they are.
I hope you guys play each other in a bowl game.
I don't want to play. Look at this guy, old Christian over here, riding on his high horse, compete for a third national title. A 6-6 Florida team plays a 6-6 Nebraska team. Yeah.
I think it would be I think it would be so interesting to see that. Right. I think it would be really interesting to see Florida play Nebraska. Two teams of the 90s.
Yeah.
Dare I say? True. Squaring off. It would be for. Like, there's not a lot of bowl games that I get excited about, at that point of the season, unless it means something. But that would be one I would legitimately tune in to watch.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, you'd have to, especially I'm a Nebraska fan, so I'd have to watch it. But yeah, I agree with you. It's two programs that were really good at different times and, same times over the course of 30 years. I agree. But yeah, it's just, yeah, I'll be honest with you. If Florida had to play Nebraska today, I would probably lean Florida. I would. I truly would, because they get the better offense.
I think, yeah. I mean, I would have to too. I certainly would have to too. I hate to say it, but well, Chris, I think this is the hour and 6 minute mark here. We're going to be back on Saturday for our preview show. Be there around 9:30 on Saturday morning. Again, we're still chugging along. The season might be at a slow point yet, but there's still football on, and we're still watching. So, we'll see you guys on Saturday. Chris, I'll let you sign us out here, bud.
Yeah, no problem, Christian. No, he's exactly right, guys. Show up Saturday morning, man. It's a lot better than college game day. I'm going to say that right now, and I'll say it again. So we're better in college game day. Come on, chat with us. We like to nothing scripted on the Saturday shows. Christian and I, get up early. We want to watch the football, talk some shit with you guys. Tell me why, Florida's the best team in the country. No, let's go, man. I appreciate the support, though. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. It helps us out. But I appreciate it, guys. We'll talk to you guys later.